I almost failed my IELTS exam. Not because I couldn't speak English, but because I misunderstood something crucial about the test. And that one mistake almost cost me my chance to study in the UK. It was years ago, and since then, I've completed that master's degree, learned from all the top IELTS experts, worked with former IELTS examiners, and taught over 30,000 students in my courses. And these 20 lessons come from that journey, and they will help you pass faster. Lesson 1. Let's start with something recent. I've been doing research into ChatGPT for IELTS prep and compared the scores it gives to IELTS writing essays with the scores of a real human IELTS examiner. ChatGPT just kept on giving a band 6 to a student of mine, as well as to an official model answer. So I asked a former examiner on our team to assess the same answers, and he gave a 7.5 to the student and 8.59 to the official answer. That student actually took the test and received a band 7 in writing. Basically, ChatGPT is amazing for practicing speaking, getting ideas or suggesting vocabulary. But for now, ChatGPT cannot give accurate band scores. The second lesson is a game changer for some, although I hope you won't need to use it. If you took your exam but the result was too low, you can now find out why. You can request a score breakdown for your writing and speaking sections, and you get something like this. So here you can see what dragged the score down. For example, in speaking, it was vocabulary and pronunciation. In writing, it was task 1. It takes about a month to get your result, and I'll leave a link in the video description with instructions on how to request it. Lesson number 3 is quite personal. I've always been a good student, finished both of my degrees top of the class, but I almost failed my first IELTS test for the silliest reason. I lived in Kazakhstan and needed IELTS for my master's in the UK. So I bought a couple of IELTS books, opened one, an IELTS vocabulary, and was terrified. I hardly knew any words in that book. And I suddenly felt so far from passing that I threw the books away and forgot about them for a few months. Until the university I applied to sent me an offer with one condition: send in my IELTS score by the end of that month. And you know what? I did. The week before the test wasn't the best in my life, but I got a 7.5 overall, about the score I needed. What I didn't know then, and what's so important for you to know now, is you might not understand a fair number of words in reading, make some mistakes in writing, not be fluent in speaking, and still have the English skills to get a band 7. You may get a band 7 even if you don't feel confident in your English yet. And the second thing I wish I knew is this: IELTS books are definitely not the quickest way to prepare. Many of them are well designed. They cover different areas of vocabulary, grammar, and topics, but they are made for long classroom courses, not for someone who wants to prepare quickly. Lesson 4. Videos with hacks and shortcuts for IELTS go viral on YouTube. Things like inserting big words into your essay, learning idioms for your speaking test, or just looking for keywords in reading instead of reading the text. None of that really works. There is no way to cheat this exam. I learned the next lesson when I was already living in London and running an education consulting business. I had a client who wanted to spend 6 months on the best IELTS course in the UK. So I sent him to a premium English school that had delivered amazing results before. And the way they structured this course might surprise you. They offered a 5-month intensive academic English course and a 1-month IELTS prep course at the end. And now I know exactly why. Your IELTS score is fundamentally determined by your English skills. but your score can be higher or lower depending on how well you use those skills. IELTS preparation helps you reach the top of your current range. Now, that 1 month course had several hours of classes a day, 5 days a week, and you are probably studying or working full time. But still, IELTS prep shouldn't take too long. Lesson 6. You might say, if IELTS prep doesn't take long, why does it feel like it's taking forever? Well, it's easy to spend a lot of time and not learn much if your preparation isn't structured. Like if you're just watching YouTube videos or just reading IELTS blogs without a plan. The opposite of that is a structured course where you can learn step by step. For example, my writing and speaking courses take just 10 hours to complete. You still need to practice and that comes on top. But still, learning the same content from YouTube would take several times longer. A free alternative that will save you time is to follow a study plan and cross out what you've done. You can use my study plan. It's free and it lists everything you need to cover depending on how much time you have before your test. I'll link it below. Lesson 7. If you take a practice IELTS test and the result seems disastrous, you run out of time, make way too many mistakes, and it feels like you just can't do it, it doesn't mean you can't. It's like trying to do a ski jump before you've learned how to ski. Not a good idea. Take it slowly. Learn what you need to do. Practice in small bits. Answer some reading questions or write just a body paragraph for your essay. Once you feel more confident, start taking a full reading or writing test and track the time. Gradually reduce it to 60 minutes. It's less stressful and more effective. Lesson 8. If you're consistently getting high scores in listening or reading or both, like a band 8 or 8.5 when all you need is a 7, you don't need to spend much time on these sections. Focus more on writing and speaking instead. You don't have to cover everything equally. Identify your weaknesses and work on them. Lesson 9. There is one section where it's so easy to lose marks. My fellow YouTuber, Korean Billy, took the IELTS test and got amazing scores in 3 sections, but guess where he got a 6.5? In writing. My guess is he lost a lot of points in the 2 criteria where examiners actually assess your writing skills. Even if your vocabulary and grammar are great, that's only half the score. You still need to learn how to meet all the IELTS writing requirements. Number 10. There is another common mistake I see. You may know that writing task 1 counts for 1/3 of your writing score and task 2 for 2/3. So naturally, you might spend more time practicing for task 2. And yes, task 2 is more important, but quite often it's task 1 that's dragging the score down, like we saw in this case. Prepare for both writing tasks. Lesson 11. I've noticed that when a task feels too big, like that vocabulary book, I tend to procrastinate and avoid starting. And what really helps me stay motivated is breaking big tasks into small, manageable ones. Also, instead of tracking your results, try tracking your input. Make a schedule. How much time are you spending on your prep? On which days? What topics are you covering? And don't expect immediate results. Learn to put in the effort first and trust the results will come later. Lesson 12. There is one exercise that works like magic for so many students. When you complete a reading or listening test, don't just count the number of correct answers and close the book. Analyze your mistakes, learn from them, and next time you do better. The next lesson is short. There are so many question types in reading, writing, and even a few in listening. Learn the logic behind each question type. It helps. Lesson 14. One of the major difficulties in the test is time pressure, especially in reading and writing. And you really need to figure out what works best for you. For example, they say to spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2, but that's not what I do. I finish task 1 in 15 minutes, task 2 in 25 minutes, and then spend 20 minutes proofreading both answers, basically checking that my ideas are clear, fixing word repetition, and correcting all the typos I usually make. And that's how I get an 8.5 in 60 minutes. To write band 9 answers, I need more time, but I don't think you should do the same. Test and find what works for you, but make sure you manage your time carefully during the exam. Lesson 15. Once I was taking an IELTS speaking test. I was right in the middle of my answer when the examiner suddenly cut me off with the next question. I started answering again and he interrupted me again. It felt really abrupt, and I remember how bad it made me feel. And while I can't promise that your examiner won't interrupt you, it helps to know this. In the speaking test, the examiner has to manage the time, and they've got a lot of questions they need to ask you. So when it's time to move on, they'll stop you, some more gently than others. But those interruptions don't affect your score. Number 16. I've taken the IELTS exam many times, and most of the examiners were really encouraging. They try to make me feel comfortable using gestures and facial expressions to show that they were listening or to signal that it was time to stop. But a couple of them seemed disinterested or a bit harsh. And the thing is, the examiner's personality doesn't affect your score. So if your examiner isn't as lovely as I hope they will be, just do your part and don't take it personally. Lesson 17. I know that if I release a video called How to Get a Band 9, way more people will click on it than if I call it How to Get a Band 7, even though a Band 7 is enough to pass for most candidates. Aiming high is a great tactic in many areas of life, but it can backfire in IELTS, especially in IELTS writing. Here are two versions of the same conclusion. The first one is strong enough for a 7.5. But if you aim for something like a Band 9 level, and you're trying to imitate the second answer by using high-level vocabulary and complex grammar before you've mastered simpler structures, it just leads to more mistakes and possibly reduces your score. So don't obsess over a Band 9 when a Band 7 is enough for your goals. Lesson 18. Examiners do assess your vocabulary and grammar level. So more high-end vocabulary and more complex grammar lead to a higher score, right? Well, not always. It may be the opposite. When you use words and grammar you're not comfortable with, you make more mistakes. And your vocabulary and grammar scores may actually go down. And if your answer becomes too complicated, you can lose marks in other areas too because it's no longer clear. Remember, in IELTS, clarity beats complexity. Lesson 19. Here is a message I received recently. I've done all the tests in Cambridge English practice tests 14 to 19, but my reading score is only a Band 6. Where can I find more tests? We often say you need to practice more to improve your score. But the truth is, practice alone isn't enough. Picture a pyramid. Practice is at the top, but it's supported by two pillars: English skills and IELTS strategy. And if you've learned the strategies and practiced using them, but your score is still low, most likely it's your English skills that are holding you back. And in this case, I'd start reading more, learning new words, improving your grammar. Maybe take an academic English course. Practice doesn't make perfect if the foundation isn't there. Lesson 20. On the exam day, you'll spend around 3 hours in the test room with no official breaks. If you need to go to the toilet, you'll lose time from one of your sections. And you're not allowed to leave during the instructions or in the last 10 minutes of each section. So you really lose time in the middle. And I wish I'd skipped that big coffee before my first test. I hope that my experience and perhaps the free IELTS study plan I've linked below will help you save time in your preparation and pass with a higher score. Thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!